All right, everybody. So this is episode 8 of Just the Gi Top podcast. So we're super excited today. We have an awesome guest, Gianni Grippo. So we're going to go through some questions. Gianni's a 6-time world, 7-time Pan champion. So lots of knowledge there. We got lots of questions for him. So we'll just go through, as always, really quick introductions. So for the podcast panel, there's myself, Adam Cousins. Beside me there, we've got Ahmed Chirani.
Hello.
Then we've got Jordan Short.
Hey.
And then we've got Rami Chirani.
Yo.
All right. So, Gianni, maybe if you just want to kind of introduce yourself, tell people where you train. I think pretty much everybody knows who you are, but just for anybody who may not.
For the uneducated.
So my name is Gianni Grippo on the bottom of the screen. You can see there. I'm 21 years old. I train at Marcelo Garcia's Academy in New York City on 26th Street. I started training when I was 10 years old at Renzo Gracie Academy, but after 10 years of being there, I made a switch over. During my time training for over 10 years, I've learned a lot from a lot of different people, traveled to a lot of different places in the world, not only to compete, but to just simply train and learn from others. So I've learned a lot in the sport, picked up a few things myself, and overall it's added up to 6 world titles since I started competing at the Worlds when I was 16. Until now this year when I won the Worlds at brown belt. So, it's been a good trip so far. Hopefully it keeps going good from here.
Yeah, no kidding. So, Gianni, you said you started at 10. So what got you started in jiu-jitsu?
Well, when I was younger, like a lot of normal kids, I did a lot of different sports, I was always very active. My parents were very athletic when they were younger. My dad was into triathlons. He's a big-time skydiver. So he was always a bit of an adrenaline junkie. And my mom was always willing to push me into things. They just wanted to keep me active, and I did a lot of different things, a lot of different sports that many kids didn't get into. Most of the time it was baseball, football, soccer, and stuff like that. But I did stuff like swimming, individual sports like swimming and boxing, and then from boxing, I used to train with certain guys. I even had a few boxing matches when I was like 9 years old in the 60-pound weight categories. And I didn't do stuff there. So maybe it was a good idea that I found something else to get into. But from there, someone introduced me to jiu-jitsu in Renzo Gracie Academy in New York City. And it was still very new in New York and in the U.S. at that time, but my dad was willing to try something new, got me into it, took my first private lesson with then blue belt Magno Gama, and just fell in love with it from there, from day one, and never stopped. I normally bounce around the sports, but that was the one that I stuck with, and it's still stuck today.
So what was it about jiu-jitsu that was different from the other sports that you had tried that really made you gravitate towards it and commit yourself so fully to it?
I'm not even sure. I don't know. Maybe it was just something. I don't even know. It took me a little while because I think from the ages of 10 to 12, I just took it as like a hobbyist thing to do. I still swam. I swam for swim teams. I used to go to school in the morning and afternoon. My mom would pick me up. She'd take me to swim practice from about like 3:30 to 5:30, and then from 5:30 to 6, we'd drive into New York City. I'd change into my gi in the car, and then go take 1 or 2 private lessons in a class in New York City at Renzo's. So I stayed active with a bunch of different things, but after like seeing a few tournaments, competing more, and then especially going to Brazil the first time when I was 12 in 2004. That solidified it for me. I think I even dropped swimming and everything after that. I just wanted to solely focus on jiu-jitsu from there on.
So with the trip to Brazil, was that a trip for jiu-jitsu? Yeah.
Well, I mean, my parents wanted to get me out of the country, and like, oh wow, wouldn't it be cool to have a first trip out of the country to Brazil itself, and then while in the meantime get training there as well. We took about a week of like touring around, but every day I would train a little bit, nothing crazy. If it was today, it'd be a different story. I wouldn't do any touring at all. I'd just be on the mats most of the time. But in the meantime, it was pretty cool because the World Championships were going on at that point out in Brazil. One of the last few World Championships they would ever have in Brazil before they moved to California in 2007. And the big match that changed things for me was seeing Hadra and Jacare fight in the final of the Absolute. And I just see how passionate people were about the sport. And watching that and the intensity of that match, I realized I wanted to be there. I wanted to be part of that. And I just thought it was great.
Just really quick, so do your parents train at all?
No, they don't train at all, but they, I guess they understand a little bit of it. My dad more than my mom. they weren't gonna push me into things that they wanted me to do. They wanted me to find my own thing, you know. So they tried me out with a bunch of different sports, with swimming, boxing. They didn't necessarily do it, but they would help me out get into it. My mom especially, no. My dad, you know, he used to do wrestling and stuff back in the day, so we had a basic understanding, but none of them did it. They just, you know, kind of found it, let me try it out, and that's what I fell in love with.
Sounds like you've always been kind of busy. What's your training schedule like now?
It's crazy. This is why I'm taking this Sunday not to do anything, because this past week was really nuts. But a normal day's training, I like to drill a lot. I do a lot of drilling before and after every practice. I try to schedule myself around Marcelos' classes that he teaches twice a day, both at 12:30 and then at 7 at night. I'll drill for about an hour before class with a certain partner. I only have a few certain partners that I work with before and after. So I'll drill for an hour before class, the afternoon, and then we'll take the class itself where it's all training. And then after, drill for another hour. Rest for about a few hours or so, and then the night sessions come around. For that, I'll do an hour before training, drilling an hour before class, and then another class itself at night. So I try to get as many hours as I can, probably about 5 to 6 hours on the mat a day. And then 3 times a week I'll do strength and conditioning on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where I have to get up a little extra early to do my strength and conditioning workouts.
Holy crap! So
Just a long day.
So basically, do you have like a specific moves that you're drilling on top of what Marcelo is teaching, for instance, in those classes? Like, how do you structure that? How do you decide what you're going to actually drill?
It was really a lot of trial and error. I used to do it like months a period of time, where I would just drill a certain technique for an entire month, and then the next month would be something else entirely. Well, actually, like 3 to 4 techniques within the same type of position. You know, kind of just, I wouldn't. One mistake I used to make when I first started drilling, I would do something on top, and then I'd do something on bottom, and then I'd do something, you know, all over the place. I feel like the best way to make drilling as effective as possible is to focus on one certain thing for that period of time, for a certain period of time, and then just work on that constantly. Since moving to Marcelos, I changed it up a little bit, because now I do want to adapt what he does. He does have a very different style that I don't necessarily work on it as often in the past. So now I'm trying to adapt that, because the more I compete, the more people know what I like to try to do, you know. And I feel like it's good now that Noogie season's coming around to try to adapt my game. So what I'll do, I do 3 drilling sessions in a day. I'll try to have 1 drilling session or 2 drilling sessions where I focus on exactly what I like to do, what I feel most comfortable with, and then have 1 drilling session where I pick up a few of the things Marcelo teaches in the classes and really try to work those to death so that they become a part of my game as well. And then hopefully that night in training, you'll try to work on adapting new things while also still using my own parts of the game. I'm starting to see a lot of things, like I like the Delihiba and the Berimbolo and all that, and I'm starting to see how I can transition that into Marcelo's X guard and one leg X, and going back and forth into it while people defend to try to and eventually something works, either the Delihiba or the X guard.
So does that mean, like, even with moves that you're really good at, like let's say the Berimbolo or something, that you actually do you still, despite how good you are, do you still feel like you have to keep drilling them and drilling them and drilling them, or do you kind of move on once you feel like you get a move?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually.
Yeah. I keep drilling them. I feel like people say, oh, you got it already, don't worry about it, but I want to make it even better if possible. I have noticed the first year I drilled Berimbolo, I drilled one certain thing, and that was it. I didn't really have too much of a dynamic Berimbolo. I drilled the same thing over and over again, but then I started seeing different variations of it, and now I'm drilling many different types of it, and so now I really got to drill a lot, because now I know a lot more to it than I did before. So yeah, I'm always drilling, even the basic ones. I feel like it can't hurt to keep practicing. And every time I watch a match or I see myself drill, sometimes I'll just film a few reps of that I do. And I do see little mistakes that I make, you know. So each time I can improve a little bit more. We always want to shoot for perfection when when we're drilling, you know. Nothing's ever perfect. So maybe sometimes perfection isn't even possible, but you got to shoot for that anyway. So I'm always practicing it, no matter how good I feel I'm at it.
So how do you mentioned about Noogie season, so do you basically switch over to just training exclusively Noogie during this time of year? Are you still training Gi, or?
My training actually changed a lot from when I went from Henzo's to Marcelo's. when I was at Henzo's, I was really able to schedule my own training sessions, do what I want, because there was more space. There was 3 floors. If I wanted to do something on my own one day, I could fit that. For 11 months out of the year, I would just train gi and just preparing for the Worlds for like almost 11 months, and then I'd prepare just for 1 month with no gi and only do no gi. But and that worked for that time. You know, I was able to get the world titles I wanted to get, the Pan Am titles, and even the no gi world titles as well. But I like actually what we're doing at Marcelos now. Marcelo has an interesting way where he believes both gi and no gi can help each other. So gi can help no gi, which is known. People believe that. But he also believes no gi can help out in gi, which I'm starting to learn more about. First, I was a little reluctant. I was a little like, yeah, this is. I'm a creature of habit. I like to keep my own routine. So it was a bit of a change for me, but I'm really accepting it now, and I'm really liking it a lot and embracing it. So now throughout the entire year, if you divide all of our classes, it's half and half, gi and no gi. So when we're getting ready to compete, we can be ready to compete in any gi or no gi tournament that comes up along the schedule throughout the entire year, which I really like. So now I think this year I'll be even more prepared for no gi tournaments, no gi Pan Ams, no gi Worlds than I have been in the past, because I've spent 6 months training no gi instead of 1 month. You know, and especially working with, you can't help but get better if you're working with a 4-time ADCC champ.
Yeah. Speaking of
he's not bad.
No.
Speaking of ADCCs, any movement? I know that your girlfriend Erin was posting, trying to get you an invite for ADCCs. Has there been any movement there at all?
I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I think I started a little late on it. You know, I'll keep shooting out there and seeing how it goes. But nothing quite yet. I emailed all the guys. You know, I emailed all the organizers. I'm like, hey, I sent them on my resume. You know, Aaron helped me with what exactly to say. You know, because sometimes when I email, maybe I'm not put the right words in there. But yeah, I threw everything out there. You know, I think I can be a good candidate. Maybe I started a little late on that. I started realizing, hey, there are a few spots open. But if not, we'll just have to get in the hard way next time and win a trial. You know, so if it doesn't happen this time, it'll happen next time. You know, I just gotta compete next time, which is something I like to do anyway. So that won't be too bad. It'll be fun.
Gianni, just a quick question in regards to ADCC, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, or Gianni, correct me if I'm wrong, but does the ADCC allow for heel hooks and slamming out of submissions? Is that correct?
I believe they allow for slamming out of submissions. I believe. I could be wrong on that one. I'll have to read the rules. But heel hooks are illegal, you know. But Marcelo, as long as guys don't go nuts on them, we don't mind going for heel hooks in training, just as long as you don't like crank them. You know, so that's also another good thing. I remember at Henzo's, I was like, we just weren't supposed to go for heel hooks, which is something that you can miss in training if you're going to be competing in ADCC. So at Marcelo's, he allows them just as long as you're not stupid about them.
So is that something that you started actually training for once you switched over to Marcelo's, like with heel hooks? Because when I'm sure most people here when they train, they don't do heel hooks at all. And
not
I'm worried
much.
about.
I mean, I roll with a lot of MMA guys come into Marcelo's every once in a while, so they go for heel hooks. That's that's part of the game, and some go for them on me, but not too many, you know. But I do think about them. I don't necessarily go hard for them or really go for them much, but I'm always thinking about them in the back of my head. When I train, I try to think of the certain competition I'm in. You know, if it's ADCC, I start thinking about like, oh, there's no points at this certain time of the match. There's only points at the later in the match, so I'll try to roll with guys with 10-minute rounds. I'll try to think, okay, so these first 5 minutes, points aren't going to matter. Next 5 minutes, then you want to really turn it up. I don't try to be overly competitive in a match, but I do try to think of points and the certain rules while I'm training of whatever competition I'm going to be in. So like when I fought at the 5 grappling event with Darson, normally, you know, I'm in double guard pull matches, but I trained knowing that if I came up on top in a double guard pull, I get 2 points. So I trained thinking about that as well, you know, and thankfully it worked out.
That was awesome.
Okay, so something that we talk about or have talked about a fair bit on the podcast, maybe just a bit of a lighter note. So are there any awkward training experiences, weird training experiences that you wanted to share? Just funny things that happen in training?
Funny things that happen in training. Besides it being really rough and competitive and scary sometimes, like now I'm training with Bernardo Faria. He's training for ADCC. He's in the over 99 kilo division, so he's he's getting huge, and he's like, man, I'm fighting the big guys because this isn't his normal weight class. He's actually light for them, which is scary because the guy's a monster. But nothing too crazy, Marcelos, besides him saying like he knows he has a lot of weight on me, so he's like, okay, Gianni, I want you to be ready. I'm gonna go really hard now. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And then time runs, and he just starts going nuts. He's probably the craziest guy I've ever rolled with. And he doesn't try to hurt you, but he will roll very hard, and he doesn't stop. You know, he's like, Johnny, try to keep moving, try to keep moving. I'm like, man, it's hard. You're like 220 pounds, and you're just like laying on top of me. I don't know what to do. But the one thing I could say that's interesting about Marcelos is the guys are so aggressive there. They train so hard every time you roll with them, especially the competition guys. I'm playing a lot more defense than I ever thought I would, but it's made me even better. It forced me to be even more aggressive. So I don't know if it's anything funny because it's not getting beat down just isn't funny. But it's been a great learning experience, especially working with someone like Bernardo who's so aggressive. He makes me even more aggressive. Now I got to realize, man, I got to be on the attack right away. I can't just be sitting back for long. So nothing funny, just painful.
Actually, Gianni,
you find?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sure. Okay, sorry, Gianni. Just really quick, you mentioned aggression, and like I just competed last night, and I faced somebody who was super aggressive. It was like a round robin system. Anyway, so I had to face him a couple times. It really sucked, but super aggressive, super strong guy. I just there's no way I can keep up with that level of aggression / strength. You know, do you have a tip for, especially yourself? I mean, you're a smaller guy, feather, I believe, light feather.
Yeah, feather.
Yeah. So, any just quick tips for some of us out there who, you know, strength does matter for me. Anyway, I'm getting bull rushed and whatnot. So,
yeah.
If you have any tips, maybe.
I'd always say the best thing is when I was younger, I had a good offense. A lot of people always told me that, Gianni, you have a good offense, you have a good attacking game, but your defense really is kind of sucks. As soon as you get put in like a tough position, or as soon as you start going with the aggressive guy, you start having problems. You start giving up positions. So what I try to work on a lot is my defense. Try to work on a lot of guard retention. The biggest thing, especially since I like being a guard player, I always try to focus on keeping guys at a certain distance, keeping them away, using my feet, using my hips. Good hip movement is very important to have against an aggressive guy. When I roll with Bernardo, the biggest thing is keeping my distance. A big guy like that, I don't want him to be too close, so I'm always practicing keeping my feet on the hips, feet on the shoulders, keeping at a distance. And then once I find a little opening, then I can go for my position. A lot of the aggressive guys I roll with, I compete against, you know, some of them are going to be going a lot harder or a lot more aggressive, doing a lot more. But I'm always trying to keep my composure at all times, never losing my cool in the middle of the match. Once I start getting angry, once I start trying to do stuff that's not at the right time, bad timing, then I start losing position. But I always try to, if someone's like overly aggressive and it's going to be hard to counter that aggressive with more aggressiveness, I'll try to, you know, just keep my distance, keep my cool, wait for my opportunity, keep your position you feel comfortable in, and you'll eventually find your opening. There's a lot of matches when guys are being very aggressive. You see mine, there's some matches where it looks like I'm not even doing anything, but I'm just waiting for my opportunity. And sometimes there's always going to be that one little moment where a guy you find a little bit of opening. And in those matches, you got to take advantage of that little opening because you don't know when you're going to get that opening back. And that's just the time to do it, you know. So good guard retention, good defense, and just knowing when to find your right opportunities to put on your attack.
Would you see your game as more of like you work on being defensive until that opening comes up? Is that how you play right from the get-go then?
Yeah, I'd say so. I try to expend as least amount of energy as humanly possible. I'll wait for my opportunity. I feel like if I just start doing things in one motion and going crazy, I'm gonna gas myself out. I'm gonna miss positions. You know, I'm gonna give openings to my opponents to do things. I don't like to open myself up. I'm only gonna open up my game once I find them making a little mistake. So sometimes that's why you find a lot of featherweight matches at brown belt to be a lot of 0-0 with one advantage each matches because guys aren't making many mistakes. But if you want to win, if you want to try to be at the top, you know, you gotta be patient, and that's the biggest thing. And just being able to look for your little openings that you have that are available. And the biggest thing is not missing those openings once they come, because with these good guys, you don't know when you're going to get those openings back.
That kind of answers one of the viewer questions we had, actually. Somebody was wondering, you know, about like, not obviously in competition, little mistakes can make big problems for you. So the question was, is that how you operate in training as well? Like, so when you're training, are you going in with that same mindset every time? Like, I can't make that little mistake, or are you a little bit more willing to kind of experiment in training?
Well, it depends on who I'm rolling with. If I'm rolling with someone like Bernardo, I'm not going to try to make any mistakes because that's just going to end up horribly for me. But it also depends on the time of year. I will try to open up my game more when there's not as many competitions coming up, take more risks. But once the competitions start coming closer and closer, I start thinking more and more about the tournament, start thinking about being in the match, how exactly I would handle myself in each position I'm in. And so I try to make as least amount of mistakes as possible, and try to keep my game close so that my opponents and my training partners don't have any opportunity to make any progress in their attack.
You said that training at Marcelos is the guys are a lot more aggressive. Would you say that that's different from the guys that are training at Renzo's? Like, what would you say are the biggest differences between training at Renzo's and training at Marcelos?
Training at Renzo's, there was so many different instructors there that everybody had a different style of game. Some would be more defensive based on what instructor they would work with the most. Some would be very aggressive that would be super tough based on whoever the instructor was that they mostly worked with. All the instructors had different times, and there'd always be people coming in at different times. But at Marcelo's, everybody has the same exact game, whether Marcelo's teaching or one of the assistant instructors like Bernardo or Paul Schreiner are teaching. Because when Bernardo and Paul teach, they're always trying to emulate what Marcelo tries to do. And Marcelo plays a very attacking, very aggressive, tough game, and everybody emulates that. Everybody has the same style. While at Renzo, some guys will work on more defensive, type of games, depending on the instructor they worked with. Some would be more aggressive. There was a bigger mix at Renzo's on a certain style than there was at Marcelo's because everybody follows the one guy, and even the instructors try to follow what Marcelo teaches to keep everybody in line, and everybody kind of has the same style, which is very aggressive and a very attacking forward game. So it's interesting to see.
Actually, yeah, I can validate that. I see guys that when they come up from Marcelo's, it could be like the Montreal Pro Trials and whatnot. They pass just like Marcelo does. They all do.
Yeah, they do, and it's frustrating as hell.
It's pretty awesome.
So Gianni, with all the training that you do, so you're basically saying 5 to 6 hours a day plus conditioning 3 days a week. How do you what kind of tips do you have for recovery? Right?
Well, definitely this Sunday off really helps. I remember when I was at Renzo's, I would still go in on Sundays. I would take privates with John Donaher, and then he would have like a small mini class. I would actually be at the academy on Sundays from about 12 to 6, which was ridiculous. I would leave and it was like dark outside by the time I got. I'm like, what is wrong with me, And then I would go back to training on Monday, and I'd feel like it's like staying up the entire night. The days start just blending together. So that wasn't the best thing. Marcelo's actually closes on Sunday. They don't let anybody come in on Sundays, which is probably, for me, sometimes I think a year ago I might have been like, oh my God, what's wrong? They want to take a day off, but that's actually probably a good thing. This Sunday really helps me out a lot. Gets me back ready for Monday for the next hard week of training. I'm actually glad there's a tournament coming up this Saturday, so I can have an excuse for resting a few days. But wait, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Well, we do that all the time here.
So tips on recovery. Rest and recovery.
Yeah, recovery.
Yeah. I always make sure I take my proteins after training. I take my glutamine at night after the last session. Help muscle recovery. Take my ZMAs, especially on a bad night. I used to train strength and conditioning with Martin Rooney for the Training for Warriors, and he was always very adamant about having a proper diet and proper nutrition routine. Like what the supplements you take after training to help you recover. So I would have my creatine, my glutamine, my ZMAs. Make sure I get enough sleep at night. That's the biggest thing. And know when you need to rest as well. I think some guys, they just if they're really beat up, if they're really hurt, they're like, oh, I'll just work through it. You know, that's just how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be miserable all the time. That's not the case. If you are hurt, if you do feel really beat up, take it slow. That's why I like to drill a lot also, because it gives me the opportunity. If I don't feel right for training, I'll just drill that day. So I'll always keep moving, but give myself an opportunity to help my body recover a little bit. You know, so it's also about being smart as well, you know, and eating plenty, which is always a good thing.
How often do you compete? And does your training change when you're prepping for a competition?
My training changes only for the big tournaments. I'll definitely start tapering down more and more as the big tournaments come up, like the Pan Ams and Worlds and the World Pro. And especially if I'm traveling a far distance, like I went to Europeans this year, I went to Abu Dhabi, of course, I had to prepare for that in different ways just because of time-wise schedule and stuff like that. But for the smaller tournaments, like next week I'm going to Boston for the Boston Open, not much is really going to change. I might give myself a day off, but besides that, I'm just going to keep focusing like it's almost an off-season. Because if I keep saying, oh, I got to keep working on my A game all the time, I'm never going to be able to improve on things I'm not as good at. So I'm still working on very different things now. And this tournament coming up, I hope I can adapt different things that I've been working on at Marcelos and put them into the competition. So when the big competitions come up, I know I feel well prepared to use them. But some people ask me, how does my training routine change from non-competition to competition season? It doesn't change at all. My training schedule doesn't get any harder or easier as the year goes on. I try to keep it consistent the entire year, 6 days a week, excuse me, without, you know, the 3 drilling sessions a day, 2 training sessions, and 3 strength and conditioning trainings a week. That stays the same throughout the entire year. But my mental focus just becomes a lot more intensified when the big tournaments come around. I start thinking more about like who's going to do what in match. What do I want to do in certain positions? You know, so my mental focus just starts becoming more and more intensified as the competitions come closer.
How do you also choose which tournaments you're going to do? Like, obviously, you want to do the big ones, Pans, Worlds, Europeans, blah, 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 etc. But what about, for instance, there's like the Chicago Open, there's the New York Open, there's the Toronto Open. Like, there's so many different tournaments around you. And then there's even the lower echelon tournaments. Like, what stops you? Because I noticed, I think you even did when you went against Amir Yafawi, that was the Ottawa Open, I think. Even.
Yeah.
What makes you choose what tournaments you want to do?
Well, that was a super fight, I believe. So he was invited for that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went to Ottawa because I was teaching at a Henzo affiliate school out there in Ottawa, and the guy invited me to teach like for a few days, and he's like, oh, there's a competition as well, so do that, and then we'll fly home after that. So I'm like, okay, great. So I got to teach and compete at the same time. It was a great trip, but it really just depends on how much money I have and how I'm feeling. You know, I think there was a tournament I remember once a week after the Worlds that was in New Jersey. It was a Grappler's Quest. My dad was like, Gianni, go, come on, let's compete, let's do it. That was the one time I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me, no way. I'm resting for a week, forget that. Especially after the Worlds. I will admit, 1 week I'll try to give myself just time off to cool my head, you know, because by then that's like the climax of my year, so I need a little time to hang after that. But mostly it depends on the money I have. You know, I was hoping to go to Chicago, but now I'm going to Boston as well. That's a lot of traveling. That's a lot of money being spent. You know, it depends on who's going as well. I don't want to travel alone to all those tournaments like Toronto, Chicago. I'd rather go with some of my teammates. So if they're not, I think we were talking about going to Chicago, but not too many people were in. So I was like, I'll just go to Boston where more of our guys are going. It really depends on money, who's going, what time of the year it is. You know, little things. If I could, I would compete at every tournament. I would love to, but sometimes it's just tough. And also, I was going to school this past month. I took a summer course, so that made it a little tough for me to go to all the tournaments, and I wasn't training as much as I would have liked at the time. You know, so a few little things here and there, but that's basically it. My biggest one.
Okay, cool.
So you mentioned taking a course, being in school. So are you still I think you were going to school for writing, correct?
Yeah, for now, yeah.
Yeah. So how does that fit into kind of your life plan with jiu-jitsu?
I'm able to fit it in pretty good, actually. This last semester before the Worlds, I did take off. I wanted to just solely focus on training and competition. And that also gave me the opportunity to be able to go to Europeans in Abu Dhabi without having to worry too much about, making up schoolwork and all that stuff. I did that just for that one semester, just so I can, get the worlds that I really was, obsessed about ever since last year. But now I'm going back. I'm going back to school in the fall, just part-time though. I think I can just do that. I'm going to take 3 classes in the fall semester. But I just know how to schedule myself right. That's why I try to keep as very organized as possible. I always have stuff written down. Like every day I have like Monday I'm going to be doing this, Tuesday I'm going to be doing this, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and how I can fit in my training with my school schedule. So for me it's just a matter of staying organized. If I don't keep organized, I'm not going to be able to train as often as I can. But I even remember when I was taking 16 credits, I was still training 2 to 3 times a day. So I was,
Wow.
yeah, it's just a matter of organizing my schedule. Making sure I print out a schedule every semester, put it up on my refrigerator, and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do this day, this is what I'm going to do that day, and don't go far from what the schedule says, or else you're going to miss time training and you're not going to do as well in school.
So other than scheduling, do you have any advice for other people who train full-time or are thinking about training full-time?
Yeah, but besides, well, my biggest thing is just scheduling, making sure that you have everything well planned out. If you go in, trying to plan your day on the fly, it's just not going to work well. Make sure you schedule your drilling sessions at good times that you can make, and that they're not unreasonable times, like that you're going to be rushing every time. You want to give yourself enough time to get everywhere you need to go, because man, New Jersey, New York traffic is ridiculous. It's hard to get around sometimes. You need to give yourself enough time to get there, to where you need to go. There's just organization. I always say that organization is the biggest key. Keeping a good organized schedule of everything you're going to do is very, very important. If I didn't have an organized schedule, there would be some days where I'm like, I can't train, because I didn't get my stuff together every night before training. Before school, I pack my lunches, I pack my dinners, I pack everything I'm going to take to training that day. I bring them all to school with me, and I just go straight from school to New York to go train for the rest of the day. And then come home 11 o'clock at night, do it all over again. Keeping organized.
Kind of on a different note, but more so in like the competition aspect, I guess. Do you have a specific? Because I know a lot of people who they're really good, but they have a lot of mental blocks when they go into tournaments, so they kind of freeze or whatnot. Do you have any sort of like mental preparation you go through before tournaments, like Worlds or something, where the stakes are a little higher, and like obviously your biggest goals are to win Worlds. I know you've said you want to win at every belt, and now you just have black belt left to do. Do you have a specific mental preparation that you go through?
I try to visualize each match I have when I go into it. I try to, just if you can see something, you can believe it, and if you can believe it, you can achieve it. I believe it's very important to be able to see exactly what you're going to do when you go into a match. You want to visualize yourself making the weight, getting your gi check, walking onto the mat, seeing your opponent, and doing exactly what you've been training to do. And besides that, you also just want to try to have fun with it. A lot of guys tend to take tournaments like it's life or death. Too many guys getting overly hyped up, posting warlike statuses on Facebook, which I remember I had the message a few guys. I'm like, you need to calm down. It's a Chicago Open. I need you to relax.
See, that's funny. Like the Chicago Open to us is huge. That's
it's not going to be the end of the world, no matter what. No matter what, you got to learn to enjoy it. There's a lot of guys out there that don't have the opportunity to do what we get to do, and that's compete and put our bodies to a test. So just appreciate where you are, what you can do, and try to have fun with it. Don't take it with too. I mean, obviously you want to be intense if you want to win, but don't take it with such intensity that it drives you crazy, or else it's not going to be fun anymore. And if you don't have fun doing it, it's what's the point? So the biggest thing I could say for people who have mental blocks and who maybe get too hyped up is just try to have fun with it. Realize that you're in a really cool situation, you're having a really good experience. The worst that can happen is that you lose, and then there's a million tournaments you can do to improve and get it next time. Just try to have fun with it, and then also if you want to do really well, you want to always try to visualize. Just have a mental image of what your match should look like, and how you want it to go. And like I said, if you see it, you can believe it, and if you can believe it, you can achieve it for sure.
So, like, when you go against a certain competitor, and let's say it's somebody who's really well known, like another person who's really well known, do you have do you think about everything they're good at as well and take that into consideration as to what you want to do? When you look at a certain competitor, do you say, I want to do this move to him and this move to him and end up with this submission at the end, or do you kind of just freestyle it as you go in?
No, I never want to freestyle it. Every tournament I go into, I have a strategy written down for them. Maybe it's just maybe I'm just a creature of habit. Maybe I'm a little weird for doing that. But even if I fought a guy 10 times before every tournament, I've written something about him every time. I'm never gonna change my game for someone, but I have to have respect for what they're good at. You know, so I'm not gonna change what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna be like, if someone is really good on top, that doesn't mean I'm like, oh man, I gotta fight on top, because that's not necessarily where I want to be. I'm gonna be like, okay, he's good at this type of guard pass, he's good at this type of submission. So just be aware of that, try to avoid it, and work around it by still working your own game. My goal in mind is always to try to like take the back and get the finish from the back. That's always the goal. But what I write down is just what they're good at, you know, what they're best at, and try to just find ways to work around it while still playing your own game. The strategy for me never changes, but what I do look out for certain opponents is just what their strengths are and what they're good at, and just be careful of it. That's basically it.
Okay, cool.
Adam,
So Gianni, go ahead, Ahmed.
I was going to say, Adam, how are we for time?
We're doing really well for time. We're about 40 minutes in right now, so we still have a few more questions we can get to.
Okay.
Gianni, I wanted to ask kind of where you see jiu-jitsu going in the next, say 5 years. It's got to be tough, to be somebody who trains full time in a sport that, it's not like there's the big, Nike sponsorship deals, right? Like there's not that much money in jiu-jitsu. Do you see that growing? Have you seen a change in that since you've been training full time? Like, do you think it's going to be a more viable option for people in the future?
Yes, and I certainly hope so, but you're starting to see it more and more. You're starting to see tournaments that have cash prizes, have money. You start seeing guys that can really make a good living off just jiu-jitsu now, and they don't need to rely on just converting over to MMA. You see guys like the Mendes brothers and Marcelo. They're all doing very well just teaching and competing in jiu-jitsu. Hopefully, like, tournaments start giving out more like cash prizes, because especially at the black belt level. And I think brown belt too, because but I think they should. These guys, we pay for our trips, we pay to we register to compete. Even the top guys don't have many big sponsors. Shoyoroll and Jitsu and a bunch of sponsors help me out, but it's a lot of money, so they always can't help out with everything. It'd be great if tournaments had more like cash prizes, especially for the top divisions. And I think that's going to happen, because now we have tournaments like the Metamoris and the Copa Poggio and a bunch of other tournaments that you start seeing that they're giving out cash prizes. So that's going to start making other tournaments be like, okay, we got to do the same thing. And then they'll see, oh, this company's giving out 500, well, we got to give out 1,000. And I think competitor companies are just going to make it bigger and bigger and bigger for everybody. It's just going to make it better. So I think in the next 5 years it'll keep growing, where people can make a good living off competing, can make a good living off teaching, and they don't have to go over to MMA. Because I remember for like a few years ago, people were like, oh, so you're gonna eventually, once you get your black belt, just go to MMA, right? But that's not really what I want to do right now. That's not my goal. I don't want to have to do that. I want to be able to just teach and compete and be able to make a good living just by doing that. And I think that's possible with the tournaments that are coming out now, and with how popular the sport's becoming. I think we got a good chance of being able to make a good living off the sport in the next few years.
That's a very good point you mentioned about Metamoris and pay-per-views in general. I think that's somewhere where our sport is heading in the foreseeable future anyway. So
yeah, I just hope it keeps getting better. I hope nothing drops with that. Sometimes you see good things come and go. Hopefully it sticks around.
Well, there was like that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's been 3 mainstream ones that have happened. I mean, obviously Metamoris 1 and 2, and then there was the other one that was held, that was the super fight between Estema and Nick Diaz, which never happened.
Yeah, I don't know about the World Jiu-Jitsu Expo thing. That one's run by Enzo. Yeah, I think they have another good one coming up in November, I believe it is. and I think it should be pretty good. They have some really good super fights for it, so I think they're another one that's interesting to look at as well, for sure.
Oh, great.
They have a brown belt Grand Prix. I got to put my name out there. I want to be in it.
Kind of in line with, I guess, what I was talking about a little earlier with like how you tailor your game to other people, especially like well-known competitors and whatnot. Who do you actually think is your toughest opponent that you've faced to date?
It could be win or lose. It doesn't have to be necessarily a loss. Like, who's the toughest to beat, or the toughest, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got an opportunity to fight like all the best guys this year, win or lose. Thankfully, the ones that won were the ones that I felt like mattered the most at the Worlds. But the toughest one for sure, the two toughest guys I fought were definitely Keenan Cornelius and Paulo Miao for sure. And like I fought them 3 times. Unfortunately, they didn't end up too well. You know, I felt like I fought well, but those guys are they're pretty damn good. You know, they're really good. I fought Keenan the Absolute in Boston, and I fought Paulo Miao at the Europeans and Pan Am final. You know, at the Pan Am final, I lost by judge's decision. I felt like I could have gotten the win in that match. You know, I felt like at the end I had a sweep, but only got an advantage for it. You know, the ref gave it to him. And then the next time we fought at the Pan Ams, and I made one mistake and he took my back. You know, so I learned a big lesson from that. That was a big eye opener for me. But yeah, those two guys were definitely the 2 best guys I fought this year and probably in my entire career. Fought a lot of other good guys, but their games were very solid, and you have to have a very good strategy to beat those 2 guys, because Paul is obviously very good at his berimbolo. He's got a very tough guard to pass. It's a hard game to work around for anybody, and Keenan is just very well rounded in every position. Whether you fight on bottom with him or on top, you know, he's got a very well-rounded game that's hard to work around.
At that level, I would imagine you fight some of the same guys quite often. Mm-hmm. Do you have any rivalries with anybody, even within your own division? I suppose would make more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few. I remember when I fought in the kids divisions, I fought this one kid from Lloyd Irving's 16 times. Oh my God, we were so sick of each other.
I don't even think I've competed that much.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed because I think when I was younger, I got beat by him like the majority of the time, and then I started beating him, and I think it was like 8-7, or that must have made it 15 times. It was 8-7. All I needed was one more match to tie up the rivalry, but then he went off to college and didn't want to train anymore. I'm like, no, we need one more, more matches. Come on, please. It was like killing me for years. But that was one. That was in my younger years, so it's, you know, I kind of forget about it a little bit now. But definitely like the IBJJF circuit. One of the big guys I fought was another Lloyd Irving guy. Well, it used to be. I fought this kid, Andres Brunovskis, from Lloyd's. You know, I think he's now with Atos now with Keenan and all those guys out there. Man, we had 5 fights. I was able to win all 5, but they were all decided by like 2 points or less every single time, and they were just like crazy intense matches every time, and there's always a lot of fun. Rivals, I don't know. I think the guy I fought at Worlds a few years ago, he like unfriended me on Facebook after. I don't know. I get along with all my opponents, so I can't really say they're all serious rivals, because I try to stay friendly with everyone, but you know, we definitely have. It's obviously very different when we're on the mats, but I can't say I have any serious rivals because, you know, we all still get along. Even the kid I fought 16 times, we still get along today. You know, so no one I really hate. And I don't think anybody hates me. I don't know. I'm sure there's 1 or 2, but I wouldn't know.
Just from my own personal knowledge, have you ever faced against Liera Jr.?
No. He's always been like a weight class or 2 above me, and I think he's like when I fought like adult blue belt, he fought juvenile, and then when we both were at adults, he was like at lightweight. I'd be at featherweight or light featherweight. So no. But it'll probably happen someday. These guys, he's 19 or 20. I'm 21. We expect to be competing for 10 to 12 more years, maybe. That sounds like a long time. But that'll probably eventually happen. I know he's really tough, so that'll be a great match as well.
Can I just do another question, because that leads into another one we had, is about Masters, because you said 12 years. I did the math, so you'd be about 34 or 33 at the time. So is that something you're looking at doing when you hit 29, 30? Are you looking to I know it's a long time away, but is that something that's on the table for a possible future, or not really?
It depends on where I'm at, how I feel, how my injuries are and all that stuff, what my goals are in the sport, if I want to be teaching more at that point. Hopefully by then I have all the titles I want to have, so I can kind of settle down and be able to just focus on teaching at that point. I think it's a little tough. Maybe guys that started at a little bit of a later age might do that, but for me, I started competing when I was 10 years old. By the time I get to 29, 30, that'll be 20 years of competing. And at least every year I have about 50 matches a year, so that's going to add up to a lot. And who knows where I'm going to be at that point? I'm going to be a 60-year-old by the time I'm 30, I'm sure. So, I really want to have a school someday. I really want to focus on that. So probably by the time I'm I would say about 32, 33, I would focus more on teaching. But you never know. I might do the masters here and there, but that's always a possibility. I'm not sure.
Cool.
All right.
Gianni, something that we've also talked about in previous podcasts. Just wondering what your thoughts are, because it's Worlds is an open tournament. Do you see that going to or would you like to see it go to a qualifying tournament, through regional or national qualifiers?
I would like to see that. I think that would be great, but I don't think it's ever going to happen because there's the IBJJF. That's their payday when all the people come up from all around the world to compete at that tournament. There's no way they're going to want to try to, cut people off from competing. They're going to let anybody come in. That's why they had white belts come in 2007, because it brought a lot of money in. I remember there was at one point they were talking, when they brought it to California in 2007, they were thinking about turning it into something where every 3 years we're going to go to some other country or some other state and really spread jiu-jitsu to the world, but they made a ton of money that first year, so they're like, oh, we're staying in California. We don't want to go anywhere else. So I don't think they're going to cut off people from competing because they make so much money off that. It would be good because I think sometimes it gets overcrowded. They almost made the tournament 5 days this year. Someday it's just going to be an entire week. They used to have that in Brazil. In Brazil, to compete at the Worlds, you used to qualify, but they don't have that anymore. I think to have the level of competition, you have all the best guys there competing, which I think would be really cool, but it's just I just don't see it happening based on how much money they can make just by having everybody come in.
You're kind of talking about the IBJJF. So they're typically the whole, you can win by points or submission or whatever, or ref's decision. What do you think of submission-only tournaments? Do you prefer points? Would you prefer a tournament where it is submission-only, or what's your preference?
I don't know if I really have a preference either way, because I have gotten those advantage matches and I've won those matches by advantages, and I'll take it because the guys I compete with are so tough. But submission only, that's very appealing. I'd always prefer to watch something like that. I think submission onlys are more appealing to the fans, and people want to see something decided by advantages, not by advantages and by submission. But I get people think it's just so easy to submit the guy. Oh, if you just submit, these guys just fight for advantages. They're not fighting for advantages. I know these best guys don't want to fight for advantages, but it's just so tough. These guys are so close together. Their talent levels are here and maybe here. They're all so neck and neck. It's hard to finish matches, and I feel like sometimes the submission-only matches can be even more boring because it's going to take them about 2 hours to submit the guy, Sometimes it could just draw things out even more. If they did submission-only tournaments, I can only imagine how long they'd go on for.
Ahmed fights for advantages.
I love advantages.
I'll just throw that out there.
No, I just say I don't know, it's just so grueling. I'd rather just give me my 7 minute purple belt match, and I'll just that's all I want. I don't want anything more than that.
I do when I ran the competition classes at Henzo's, it did make it kind of more fun because by the end of the training I would set up everybody would do one submission only round. We'd all find someone that we felt like was hardest to submit. So we would do that, and that'd be a lot of fun because you don't have to worry about giving up certain positions, giving up certain things as long as you don't get submitted. It kind of changed your mindset, but sometimes they could be drawn out. I remember we were all finished. We were waiting for one group to finish that went on for almost an hour. We're like, come on, we got to get out of here. You know, so that's the only thing I always think about with submission-only tournaments. They could probably go on for a while.
Cool.
What you mentioned running classes, like what's your sort of ideal class? You know, you get a lot of people, there's a lot of division in terms of, you know, do you do heavy warm-up, do you do a light warm-up? What's kind of, you know, what's your ideal class structure look like?
Okay. My ideal class structure is something that has a warm-up, but it's nothing too, like, not a crazy warm-up, because I feel like to warm up, for like training and for jiu-jitsu, we don't need anything ridiculous. For warm-up, I would always try to do something that it works with certain drills. When I ran a competition class, I used to have the guys warm up doing certain drills that they like, you know, certain techniques. It doesn't have to be, you know, running around in a circle, you know, for a long time. I don't feel like that was ever the best way of doing it. You can do that and then do certain drills, but sometimes, you know, just running around that I see a lot of schools do isn't, I don't always feel is the best way. I feel like you want to do something that's also not only a warm-up, but it's going to also help you get your technique better as well. You know, certain drills to help your jiu-jitsu. It's not just about, you know, getting you to sweat. It's about, you know, getting the technique right, and that's what it's all about. From there, you know, I would just have certain techniques for a certain period of time and also give the guys plenty of time to roll. But say if I were to set up a week-long schedule, I would try to change it up every day. The one thing I love about Marcelos is that the warm-ups are always different every day. The techniques are always different, while also at the same time they could be a little similar, but there's just little different variations in techniques. You want to have a good structure when you teach. You don't want to just show a random thing one day, a random thing another day. You want to try to all keep it within the same, you know, position, except maybe just little minor details here and there that are different. You know, it'll help keep the students in line, help them stay focused on, okay, this is what we're working on for the week, let's just focus on this and go on to something else the next week. I think that's a very good idea. And then always trying to change up the training. Every day I like to try to do something different. I like it when we do, okay, maybe just open training like for 5-6 minute rounds, you know, something like that. And then one day just do, I remember one day we did a no time limit submission only round. You know, I thought that was great. You know, having a diversity keeps things interesting for people. You know, I think that makes it more fun as well. And then when Marcelo has some pretty fun warm-ups, so that always makes it exciting. The races there are ridiculous.
What's that, sorry?
No, Marcelo puts on these weird races when you have to do like hip escapes, you know, when you have two teams, and it's just crazy. And it brings the whole school together, and it tears each other apart at the same time as we try to beat the other team up, you know, when we spar. It's nuts.
I know a question that Rami was itching to ask, and I think he might have been too afraid to, was about your gym wins. I think he wants to know everybody who you've beaten in training. If you could just like maybe even forward him a list of names.
No, I don't keep track of that.
We're joking, man. We have
what's in the gym stays in the gym, you know.
Exactly.
But the thing with Marcelos is like, man, everybody is so good there. We go back and forth with each other every day. There's not one guy that's like completely destroying everyone. Even Bernardo, you know, Bernardo has his tough days because everybody really works hard. Everybody really drills a lot, trains a lot, is focused on winning. You know, especially we have a competition group. We all have the same mindset. You know, so some days some guys are just gonna have a great day and some guys are gonna have less days. But the guy with the worst day one day might have the best day the next day. Everybody is. It's a really cool group we have at Marcelos. All the guys, the main guys, are between 19 and 23. Everybody's working hard every day with the same goals in mind, and you know, and we don't let one bad day, or if they submit me one day, you know, we're not gonna have any like feuds and go after it. We're just gonna come back the next day, and if I tap him, we just talk about it after. We go over like, okay, you did this, you did. How do you counter that? Like, you know, I've been to other schools that would never share secrets with each other, but the cool thing is that we share everything with each other, how we submit each other, how we pass each other's guards, so we know to defend it next time. And when I learn how to defend how this guy passes, he's going to have to focus on trying to pass the guard a different way, which is only going to make him better in the end. You know, so whoever we beat up on each other in training, but we all just become better for it and because of it.
Gianni, can I ask you just a quick question relating to sharing secrets and whatnot? And it's just my personal question myself here is that how do you feel about teammates facing one another? So, for example, I mean, so let's take someone who's your weight and competes at your belt level, and you guys happen to meet in the finals because they put you on the opposite ends of the bracket. I know some schools close it out. I know some schools go for it. Some give it to the most senior ranking, maybe, or et cetera, or they figure, yeah, we're going absolute anyway. What's the big deal, So, what's your opinion on that? Well, what do you do, maybe, if you can speak on it? That is.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, when I won the Worlds at Blue Belt, I met up with a teammate of mine in the finals. This was 2009 in the adult Blue Belt final, and I think he was expecting to close out and for me to give it to him, and I was like, So we both really wanted it bad, so we both competed. We fought each other. I won the match, and we just in the end we had better respect for each other. At the end, we became really good, even closer friends because of it. Just sharing that experience together. And luckily, he took it well. I hate to say it, I think if I was on the other side of it, I wouldn't have taken it as well.
Either way.
But he was nice about it and cool, so we got along from that. The guys can do what they want. One thing, I think within the school, it's their choice. I understand why guys want to close out, especially now being at Marcelos and seeing how everybody's is very close together. I could see why guys want to close out. Because I live on my own with my parents still, but the guys that I train with and all of our main competitive guys, they all live in the same house together. They don't want to. If they meet in the finals of the Worlds or in a big tournament, I'm sure if they fought each other, oh my God, there'd start being problems in that house.
Then wearing the medal around in the house.
Fun, but so I can understand why they close out, but I don't really agree with closing out with teammates that are in other countries. I feel like that's tough for the guy that gives it to the other guy. I remember seeing a few times one guy from Brazil gave the guy from the U.S. an opportunity to go into the medal rounds because they met up in the quarterfinals somehow. So one guy got left out without a medal this was at the Worlds too. I thought that was a little weird. I feel like yes, you want to focus on team first, but in the end, it is an individual sport as well. So I'm both for it and against it. If your immediate teammates training at the same school, I understand why you want to close out. He's your buddy. You go to eat with him every day. You go to train with him every day. Sometimes you sleep in the same house as him. I understand why you don't want to do that because you don't want any problems or anything like that. But then it's another thing if you live in different countries and yet give it to someone else. I think that could be a little weird. So I don't know if I agree with that. But if you're on the same team in the same school, I'd close out unless I just didn't like the guy.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
Adam, did you want to go through some of the other quick questions from other people? I know we covered some off indirectly, actually.
I think we've covered almost all of the questions, actually, and
yeah, we did.
We're right at the 1 hour mark. So does
sweet.
anybody have any kind of final questions for Gianni, or?
I feel bad that we don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
No, well, we spent a long time, Gianni, preparing a list of questions and the format and how long we were going to take, and we didn't want to keep you on too long, etc. So we really hit it pretty good here. So
nice, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so just a couple things we'll cover then. So first of all, if you haven't yet liked us on Facebook, please do so. Just the Gi Top on Facebook. For anybody that has, you'll notice that we're running a competition right now, a contest. We had David Aguzzi on a couple episodes ago from Grappling Industries in Toronto and Montreal, sorry. So they've been kind enough to give us a free registration to the next Grappling Industries tournament in Toronto on September 7th. It's September 7th, Ahmed?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, September 7th. So it's a $90 registration. So that'll get you registered for gi and nogi if you want to do both. If you only want to do one, you can do that as well. And all you have to do to enter is take a picture of yourself wearing your gi top. Please also wear something on the bottoms, as we do try to keep it PG. But just take a picture of yourself.
No gi pants.
No gi pants, yeah. Just take a picture. Jordan posted one today on the page of him doing some gardening in his gi top. So just a humorous picture of you wearing your gi top somewhere that you wouldn't normally. Post it on your Facebook. Tag Grappling Industries. Tag Just the Gi Top. We're going to take all of the entries, repost them on our page on Thursday, and then whoever gets the most likes will win that registration. We'll announce the winner next Saturday. Anybody else want to add anything about the contest?
I believe you covered it perfectly.
Yeah, cover it.
Okay. Also, we just wanted to have a little word from one of our sponsors. So each week we're trying to get a different sponsor. So this week we've got I Can't Believe It's Not Bolo sponsoring us. So do you keep getting choked from the back? Do you get re-boloed every time you hit 50-50? Just rub 2 tablespoons of I Can't Believe It's Not Bolo on your gi pants and never have that problem again. I Can't Believe It's Not Bolo, now with 25% more butt scoot. So thank you very much to our sponsor, I Can't Believe It's Not Bolo, this week. And that was awkward.
It was a little bit. It was. I hate getting re-boloed.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just do kind of a closeout round table if anybody has anything to add, sponsors, those sorts of things that are not made up. Ahmed, we'll start with you.
I have nothing at all. I think we should give all this opportunity to Gianni to shout out to his sponsors and whoever else he wants to.
Cool. Thank you.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. Just want to thank my sponsors, Shoya Roll and JiuJitsu. They've both been helping me out a lot in the past few years. Actually, JiuJitsu is a little bit more recent, but Shoya Roll, JiuJitsu, either way. Guys, look out for JiuJitsu. They're coming out with. I'm doing a DVD with them. It should be. I'm not sure exactly when it's gonna come out, but you know, if you're following me on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or anything, I'll be keeping you updated on that. It's gonna be a De La Hiva series. You know, it should be really cool. We're doing the filming at the end of the month, so we'll see when it comes out, but it should be really cool. Obviously, you know, you guys know Shoya Roll, so check them out. Get their gis if you can.
Oh, I do. They don't sponsor me. I pay them to sponsor me.
Yeah, and just like thank Marcelo and his academy and his school. You know, they've all helped me out so much in training and just preparing for all the competitions. And my parents. Thank you, my parents. So.
Amazing.
Cool.
Awesome.
And when that video does come out, the DVD series, just make sure to tell us. We can advertise it on our page as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be a huge help.
Yeah, for sure. And just for anybody listening, just make sure if you're listening on YouTube to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. And if you're on iTunes, make sure to subscribe to our feed. I think that's it.
That's it, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on, Gianni. We really appreciate it. You covered a ton of stuff, so it's probably pretty much everything we had hoped and more. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on. We really appreciated it.
Nice. It was a lot of fun, you guys. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Gianni.
Take care.